I'm trying to record a podcast.
Hi, everybody. You're listening to Your Natural Dog. And today, our guest is Flo Mason, the founder of Crude Carnivore, which is a brand that, if you don't know them already, they are fantastic. They make herb-infused bone broths. They also have a mushroom broth, which you know we are crazy about. And in this conversation today, we talk all about the benefits of bone broth, as well as ethical farming, what it really means to source really great ingredients, especially for Flo and for Crude Carnivore, and also the kind of progression in natural pet health that she has seen in the 8 years since she got her master's in canine nutrition. So buckle up, enjoy the ride. It's a really great conversation.
This is Ayla. She's a 7-year-old Schnauzer Poodle mix, and she suffers from chronic allergies. Prior to finding Ayla's full spectrum hemp oil, we were giving her Apoquil every day for her allergy symptoms, and that did nothing but mask her symptoms and lower her immune system. We are so happy we found her full spectrum hemp oil so we can ease her allergy symptoms naturally.
We're back with Flo Mason, and I wanted to ask you, you have a master in animal nutrition. So the moment I hear that, I'm like, well, all animals, they're all so different. But then you're like, no, I made sure to specify in dogs. Explain that to me.
So my master's degree was very much focused on small animals and the utilization of nutrients in the body. However, we get to specify kind of which direction we go in with our thesis and what we focus that on. So naturally, I picked mine to be on dog food because I was just really curious about it, and specifically the effects of natural antioxidants on the stability of omega-3 fatty acids in dog food.
Ooh.
So yeah, it's dogs do not consume enough healthy omega-3 fats. That is because most dogs consume a dry food anymore these days, and that is usually high heat processed. And as omega-3 fatty acids are double bonds, they are very, very fragile, and heat destroys them almost immediately. And most pet foods are cooked over 400 degrees. And that's just really damaging. So dogs are definitely not getting enough fats. And also, though, most average pet food companies still to this day will use synthetic preservatives to preserve those fats that they spray on the food or that are naturally existing in the food. And those are known to be carcinogenic. There's research that has come out that they are actually not very healthy for the body at all. And so we wanted to find out, what can we use instead that can be less toxic on the body, but also really protect those fats? And we actually found that grapeseed extract is one that's more powerful than BHA. And then, the other one, turmeric, was actually really powerful as well. So there's definitely other options that you could use to protect fats in food that are natural. But of course, those are more expensive and harder to source sometimes for companies. So, but yeah, that's what my master's looked like. And that's where I then, my research was more specific into the dog field. But studies wise, we kind of covered the functions of vitamins and minerals and like the nitty gritty details that I never talked to anybody about. And, that's kind of what the master's degree kind of dives into. Outside of that, there's just a lot of other research that I do myself because I just care about it and I'm passionate about it. But yeah, that was
how has everything changed? How has it changed since you first got your master's?
So I actually ran into my professor not too long ago, and I had talked to him about coming in and just talking to him because he actually still runs one of the only university programs in the world that does companion animal nutrition certifications. And it's Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. And he said every quarter or so, well, he has 3 classes a year, and every time there's 100 people in each class, which is pretty substantial. And there's quite a few people from overseas too that are in these classes, which is surprising to me. But I talked to him and I was like, hey, I want to come in and talk to you and just kind of get an update on how everything has evolved and where we're at. And he's like, oh my gosh, it's like 85% different material than when you were in school. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I'm really excited because he was like, I want to share all this stuff with you. And, you know, I obviously I have like a lot of dog books that I read and a lot of things on nutrition. So I wonder how much of it is kind of like relatable for me, that I already kind of know some of those things. And I hope that it has evolved in that direction. So we'll just kind of see what he has to tell me. But it's definitely shifted. And I have seen people in some forums talk about this program. So it's pretty cool that that's the school I went to and that's what they're doing now. So
yeah, it's amazing because it's usually not the case. It's usually a new piece of information or research comes out and I forgot the statistic, but I want to say it's like 17 years before it makes it into being taught. Like,
oh my,
the fact that I knew, let's see, I was how much older than I was. I want to say I was 20 years older than somebody who went through the same program as I did, a journalism program at a very good, the University of Miami. I went to the University of Colorado, but the person was in the University of Miami and they were teaching her the same things that I learned 20 years ago. And I was like,
my gosh,
are you kidding me? I go, and they're not even mentioning the internet and, you know, podcast and social media and all of the other ways that people, it was crazy to see how behind some schools are. So that's really nice to hear. And that he's excited to share it with you is also cool.
Yeah, we had like, I don't know, we just had like a good relationship and a good bond like through what we were doing. I think we were both just really passionate about it. And so it's just kind of cool to see. He actually had me like earlier after I graduated come back to teach a class, and I will never forget this. And that was when I had literally just, you know, dove into this entire like nutrition field. And after I'd graduated and I was at a store working and I was doing all this stuff, and he had me come back and sub this class. Well, there was multiple people that complained about me to the professor afterwards because they were like, she made me feel like I can't feed my dog kibble. And it just turned into this whole thing. And I was like, well, I'm glad we're there now. Like, I'm glad at that time you were not very happy with me, but now you're like seeing that, you know, there's a reason why we had to talk about this. And it wasn't, you know, it wasn't like I was like attacking anybody. I was just discussing the other options that are out there outside of processed food. And so it's just kind of funny. We had a conversation about how you're supposed to only educate on science. You're not supposed to educate on other things outside of studies. And to me, it's just, if that's all we ever did, then we would never move forward. Like, yes, science evolves, but it takes time for that science to catch up sometimes. Like, I have the experience hands-on for 10 years of my own pets and myself and the dogs I have helped. And if I don't get to share that and I only wait for the research that exists, especially in the time where I was in school, we will never make a change. We will just take, you know, 10 years for it to even go down the line where we're like, oh, maybe we should teach this. So it's cool to see that it's now happening. And I guess it eventually comes around. I don't know.
Isn't it a waste of time for us to be testing and researching food and natural medicinal plants and herbs? Because we've already proven it. And why do we have to prove that we should be eating real food, not ultra processed food with preservatives and things that we shouldn't be eating? We shouldn't have to research that. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
It's just the way it should be. So what'd you do when you got out? Were you like, oh, okay, I think there's a little problem here and I could maybe be part of the solution? Is that how Crude Carnivore was kind of born?
It kind of came, it was just kind of like, I mean, he called me back in his office and he was like, you know, these are the things like we can't do. I don't know. I have to talk to him about it now. I'd be interested to see what he thinks about it now. But I worked.
You need to interview him. Get it on camera.
Yeah, I should.
I want to see it.
You
I want to
told
hear.
me off. But it's funny because he told me, like, I told him that I became friends with Bryce and Kinsey from BK Pets, and he was like, oh yeah, they reached out to me and they wanted to interview me or something. I don't know. And he was like, but I don't have time for those interviews. So maybe I should just put a mic on.
I literally
like,
just wrote down, get your professor so that I could interview him.
Oh, I
Great
should
minds.
totally. Maybe
So
if
yeah,
I
you
like,
interview. Just come in with a secret camera in case he's, intimidated, and then go, oh, by the way, I recorded this. Is that okay?
Yeah, he maybe would be okay with me. I don't know. But yeah, no. So while I was in my master's degree, it was so funny because 2 months later, the girl that I was in the program with was like, hey, have you seen this natural pet store? And I'm like, what? I immediately drove there and walked in, and I was just like, I'm in my master's degree. If you ever need help, let me know. And they were like, okay. There go my dogs. They were like, okay, cool, wrote my phone number down, and I started working there 2 weeks later. And I, at this point, still wanted to just go into rehabilitation and like massage therapy and stuff. Zero like conscious clue that everything goes together. Just little baby Flo, no clue. And so I started there and I completely flipped everything upside down on its head. And I was just super excited to be in that field and learn so much about the products in that field and all the things about foods and test them out with my dogs. And so we really evolved through that. So I was there for probably 4 years, maybe 3.5. And I was like, I know I want to do my own thing. And at the time there was like no raw foods that were kind of reputable that I would be like, oh, cool. Like everything was HPP'd. Everything was just kind of like, not really sure about this, don't really know about the sourcing. And I was like, okay, but that's a little bit too big, Flo. So let's just start like, what's really missing? How can we make an impact without such a big step? And what I found is, of course, all dogs consume dry food and they need a hydrator, and they need a hydrator without the fillers. They need a hydrator without other carbohydrates, with starches. Yes. And so I was like, there's no herb-infused bone broths. They do not exist. So I literally went to the butcher shop, got some bones, picked up my herbs, throw it all in a crock pot, and that's how I made this bone broth. And then the name Crude Carnivore just came to me. It's like, in its raw, natural form is how we want to feed. And so that's how the name was born. And then that's how Crude came about. So now we're almost 5, and we make these herb-infused bone broths with grass-fed pasture-raised bones, and that's how this came about.
I love it. And you're filling, the other thing's that it's shelf stable versus being found in the freezer, which I really like that. And I'd love to know what the difference is between why is one in the freezer and why is one on the shelf. But when I saw that you released that with herbs, I was like, yeah, I like this girl. She gets it. She's like, why not? It's literally soup for dogs. But another thing that you said, and I keep repeating this fact that I just learned from Food Inc. too, that 96% of our beef, chicken, eggs, and dairy are factory farmed. So you said something very important, that the bones you use come from pasture-fed cows. What are the benefits that we're getting from that versus this factory farm shit that's all over the place?
Oh my gosh. What are they not? It's like, okay. For a while I tried to be like vegetarian/vegan kind of, because the way that our animals are treated, that we consume, that are consumed, and how they're raised, it's like sickening to me. And I can't even watch certain documentaries anymore because it just enrages me.
I'm still a vegetarian for that reason.
Yeah. And
now I'm giving up fish after seeing everything that fish, what they're doing to fish, and like it's literally impossible to find a fish.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
oh, it's so sad. So I highly recommend educating yourself, anybody listening, to watch those documentaries. They're really hard. Like Seaspiracy was a very eye-opening documentary for me that was about fishing and shrimp and dolphins, everything. It's just so sad. And I definitely did not eat a lot of that for a long time. And we source, all of us, for our own meat. We get it from a local farm where we buy our bones. And, but for me, it's the life of the animal that's extremely important. So, not only am I worried about how my animals live and how they're fed and how, happy they are, but I also know that the happiness of the animal that they consume affects their health, because animals that are raised in a stressful environment, they have higher cortisol levels, which affects the quality of their entire body. It affects the quality of the meat that we consume. They are partially in confinement where they are extremely stressed, but they're also living in their own feces. They're inhaling that. It is completely just intoxicating the entire system. And I mean, we know if we are constantly in a toxic environment where that's all we get to breathe in, you suffer from migraines, you suffer from inflammation in the body, your liver is completely overworked. There's so many things that happen. And these animals literally spend every single day not seeing outside and living in these confined conditions, being pumped full of steroids, hormones, like all these things. And that all translates into what you're feeding, and it translates into the bowl if you look at it that way. And
that translates into the high rates of cancer and autoimmune disease. Yes. And it also is the biggest contributor to our collapsing environment is these factory farms. There's nothing worse. There's nothing worse. And and what do we have now? We have avian flu now that is passed on to the cows. Because we're feeding cows dead chicken, crap, shit, parts, feathers, whatever. And the next step is that it goes over to the pigs. And now we have another pandemic. And until we fix this and stop torturing animals, Mother Nature is going to continuously punish us until we change the way things are done. It's not okay how we treat our animals. And yes, stop. Like I said, 96%, that means the restaurants you're eating at, the grocery stores that you're shopping at, start looking for places that are doing locally, sourcing from local farms. There's a huge shift. I know 3 people in the pet industry who are going completely that route and trying to figure out how to support these farmers, just like we do for our mushrooms, by the way. Local farmers, not getting it from China, supporting the farmers that are growing it right, wild crafting them, growing them on the right substrate in the woods, in the sun, the way they're supposed to be. It's the same thing how we should be raising our animals. And it makes a big difference. I mean, look, grass-fed, grass-finished beef compared to not. You literally are eating a nutritious thing, or something that's really not doing anything for you. Maybe probably causing more harm than good.
Yeah, my undergraduate degree is in animal production out of all things, which is pretty funny. So I saw, we have local pig farms here. I've been there. And to me at that time, it didn't click in my head. That was just normal. And we learned about how they put them to sleep and the processes of everything. And it was the humane way. It is absolutely not the humane way. So I learned about all of those processes and how they process the animals. And, we went to milk farms and all of these things. And it's just like, we saw the little baby cows and I just thought they were so cute. And then now I just know
what happens to them,
how horrible, horrible they're treated. Yes, it's sick. And they teach us in school that is normal.
Right. And that's not normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, I mean, I remember learning this probably in my 20s, so I'm not going to judge, but I just remember teaching someone right now. I go, only pregnant cows and cows who have babies make milk. It is it is for the baby cow. And if that baby cow is a female, that baby cow then ends up in the same predicament where it's going to become a dairy cow and that's all it is. Or if it's a male, it ends up as veal. Or they just chop it up and throw it into dog food and sell it to a dog food company. They literally just chop off their heads and their legs and throw the whole thing into something that grinds it and sell it to a dog food company, which actually is probably the best thing that's put into some of these dog foods because, as we know, most of it is old, diseased, rotten, poison, toxic shit that they're putting in there.
And they did teach us about that the things that are not human consumption, that they will cut that off and that is sold for pet food. I do remember learning that. And so it's just normal. It's just a thing. There's no secrets around it or anything. So, but it's definitely, I just love seeing the farmers that I work with. I have a few staples, but one guy especially is very close to my heart. It's a really sad story, but he's very young and his wife, she was 32. She was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. She was pregnant with her 4th child. And so he has 4 boys. She passed away last year. He's raising them by himself. And this is his farm. And he has all of these animals. He finally got a huge grant to build this processing facility for himself. And it's that's who I want to support. The guy who has a kid on his back, walks his fields, moves his animals, and rotates the ground so that the earth can breathe, and to just do so much for the animals, the people in his community, the earth. Like, he just cares. And like, how can you not support that? And so to me, that's what Crude is, you know, founded on, is like, those are the connections that I made in the beginning, and we still have those connections. And I'm able to support him with the things that usually would end up in the trash, the things that usually nobody finds value in. We are able to make something out of that can heal other animals. And so
I love it.
I think that's so beautiful. And then, you know, there's just other people that just do it right, and they want to do it right. And we get to all kind of work in like a synergistic relationship. And our earth needs so much love and so much care. And we can combat all of these things in just one go. And I know that huge companies that make bulk thousands of pounds of this stuff and food, and I know you can't, if you start that way where you don't do it that way, how are you going to ever make the switch to find someone who can provide you with that volume of bones or meat? I get that. But, you know, like, what's more important, you know? And in the end, it all comes down to money, because it's so cheap to buy the bones that are diseased and gross. You probably get them for free, honestly, and to throw those in a pot. And I mean, I don't know anything about other people's processes that much. Like, I don't, you know, I think a lot of them are pretty under the table, but I can only speak that we don't want to be that way. We want to make sure that we always do it right. And I don't know how long we'll be able to do it, you know, where, you know, may get to a point where we sell out, and when what we sell, and we can't, you know, really expand that much more. But I'd rather do it that way than to like try to figure out where we can cut corners so that we can supply more people, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I remember teaching this lesson to Hernando, who of course is my business partner, and I said everything I've ever done, whether it was a nonprofit, a business, a product, anything, the number one thing, the most important thing is, what is my intention? Mm-hmm. He literally tattooed it on his arm so he could remember, why are we doing this? And when you do things with intention and with, you know, the end product in mind to help animals and heal animals, and why not source the best stuff? And what you always get told is it's too expensive. I mean, I remember when we were searching for retreats, and we almost settled with someone, and then I asked him about the sourcing and was it organic? And she said, no, it's not organic. It's, Angie, you understand that's going to be 10 times more expensive. I'm like, I'm that bitch. I'm that person. I'm going to be the person who buys I don't even remember how much your bone broth costs, because I don't look at the cost, because I know it's what I want and it's the best of what I'm going to get. And I know not everybody can do that, but you either pay now or you pay later. You pay later when something's wrong with your dog. Or we just had a wonderful discussion before we came on about our dogs getting diarrhea from a food brand that we kind of like and we trust, but maybe we fed it too many times in a row, or we don't know. We both went through the same thing with this food brand, and woke up to my dog Maza's massive diarrhea attack with so much mucus and blood that I know any normal individual would have rushed their dog to the vet's office. And I know that 9 times out of 10, that's going to make things worse instead of better. And I know what we need to do. We need to heal that gut. And literally, I'm in an area where I don't have a dog food store where I can go buy my favorite brand. So literally went to a friend's house and borrowed good food and your bone broth from them. And I know all I have to do is give Maza that I gave it your rabbit bone broth and a little bit of pumpkin, and, you know, fasted her for a day, and she's literally completely back to normal. And also, let me ask you this in case you know the answer. When I see mucus in there, I'm assuming that's the body trying to get something out. That's the body going, because what I know from, you know, the what is it? The mucus layer. And when you feed the gut mushrooms and it creates that, and they literally, if a toxin comes through, they will literally, or sugar or alcohol or literally a virus, it will literally take it over and remove it from the body.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
see mucus and I'm like, oh, good. I think hopefully we got it all out.
Yeah,
Am I totally off?
No. So I think something that I just recently kind of was able to put into words is that diarrhea is a necessary step in healing the body. So yes, we're so quick to jump in and immediately try to fix it and immediately try to, oh, we got to solidify this immediately. And I don't necessarily think that way. Like, I think sometimes like your dog is telling you something with this it's an imbalance of some sort, but also the body being like, okay, we got to get this out really quickly. And mucus is it's coating the entire digestive lining all the way from the mouth all the way through, and a lot of things happen there. And so oftentimes that's where you have like, toxins that are collected or viruses that get caught or heavy metals that attach, and that needs to come out. And this is a little gross, but I just did a
I'll share a
parasite
poop story if you
cleanse.
share a poop story.
Well, it's my own poop story. But I just did a parasite cleanse. And I shed a lot of mucus, and I shed a lot of things that needed to come out of my body. And I lost like 11 pounds of things that needed to come out of my body that are not external. And I just think that sometimes we are so quick to think like, oh my gosh, like my dog is like dying, like they need intervention. And then we run to the vet and we get an antibiotic and we wipe out every single thing that's in the gut. And I just look at it from like okay, we have an imbalance. So my one dog that was also on that same food also had mucousy poops and blood. And if it's not black, you're fine. If it's red, if it's red, you're good. If it's black, you need to go. Yeah, wrong way around. If it's black, right, you need to take your dog in, because that means there's some type of active wound somewhere higher up. And by the time the blood makes it through, it's already black. But if your dog is shedding red blood cells, then you're okay. And I do give my dog some time, typically up to 2 weeks. I mean, I intervene with things like Saccharomyces boulardii. I intervene with certain things that I can to try to balance it out. And I did, let's talk
about that, the probiotic you just mentioned, which, now I just can't, somebody just taught me the SAC-B so that I don't have to learn how to say it right.
I always called it SAC-Boo, but yeah, SAC-B, whichever.
Ooh, even better, SAC-Boo. So tell people what that probiotic specifically does and why it's so important and why you gave that, because that's literally the steps of, okay. And also I want people to understand that when Maza's doing this, the first thing I do when I see a mess like that is I look at the dog. Is the dog happy and running around and feeling okay? Then I really know that everything's going to be okay. And then I could probably fast, give some bone broth, maybe a little bit of pumpkin, and then see. And then if I didn't get clear, then I would go to the SAC-B. And do I need to add any more probiotics because something cleaned her out? Or do I need to fast her a little longer so she's the opportunity for her system to recover? So all of those things. But yeah, explain what SAC-B does.
So Saccharomyces boulardii, in how I like to explain it, it's like an antibiotic without the side effects of wiping everything out. So it is going to be a probiotic, a good bacteria that overpowers the bad bacteria in the gut to try to bring balance back into play. So to me, it's honestly been like a game changer. And there's multiple brands out there. I don't know, but I typically, as a human supplement, you would take 2 capsules a day. So I will just break a capsule open and powder it over the food. And that's worked pretty well for my dogs. But I like to just always have it on hand. Like, I always have to have that just in case. And so in this case with my dog Stone, he's very little. He's 13 pounds, full muscle. He's not neutered, and he has a lot of separation anxiety. But we go through this spell right now. I mean, we're still working through it. It's been taking quite a while, but so I've been using that like on and off. I don't necessarily use it like for months at a time. For me, it's like,
Right.
all right, I'm going to do this for 4 to 5 days, and then we'll break and see how we're doing. So to try to just bring balance back in. But I also try to, he's happy, he's fine, he goes on walks, he plays, he's just normal, but we have this imbalance. So I did run a microbiome test on him. He has a very, very overpowering bacteria that is completely out of this world high. And they don't like fiber. And so, but this dog also does not like vegetables. He does not like his fiber. He does not like his added things on his food. He just likes to eat meat. So I think we are just really struggling with that. So what I've had to learn is that I have to mix everything together so that it's all like combined. So he doesn't have the texture differences. He's just very picky. And
give him some mushrooms. Give him my Vitality. That'll help.
Yeah, I need to do that. He doesn't like me putting anything in his mouth. He does not like mushroom broth. He won't even touch his food with mushroom broth. Is he the little
one who finds all the dead pieces of animals when you go out on walks? Oh,
that's Marvin. He's a Pomeranian Chihuahua out of all things. And that one time, I don't know if you saw that, he found a deer leg. Like he literally had like a 15-pound leg and found it somewhere, and it's hilarious. But no, this guy is a little Shih Tzu Maltese, and he just loves his dad so much and has separation anxiety, and he's just something else. But
all right, I'm sending you Calm so we can help with the separation anxiety. And then what
I give him, that.
Oh, good.
And he just
good. We're gonna give him more.
Yeah, he can
and
probably
maybe some
handle
clarity
like
to help. Yeah, give him more adaptogens that are calming to. You know, if we get to a big dose of calm and adding more calming adaptogens to it, there really isn't a dog I haven't been able to calm down. But also the actions of a full spectrum hemp extract that help with slowing down digestion and help so many things in the gut that it would probably help him with that also, especially if he doesn't like the fiber and those types of things. And then feed him. Have you ever tried feeding him the mushrooms?
Yeah, not a fan.
Not a thing.
Yeah, nope. That's a no-go. I think if I like finally chop him, I would need to try that, and that'll probably. I do typically like rip it up and then mix it, but man, he can like pick it out and just leaves it. And he's like, everybody else can have it. But we don't do much fasting. I am very much into it, and I tell people that too with their dogs. I just have this. I always feel bad. Like the dog that always finds bones, he's like the one that is just like gross. Like a cat will kill a bird outside and he's out there like 4 weeks later eating it, and it's like worm infested. He doesn't care. I'm like, great, dude. Like I should probably give your gut a rest, but then he's so hungry and I just can't do it. So he has a gut of like, I don't even know, steel. Like you'd think he'd be so sick all the time, but he's just not. He's just solid. And then like the other guy. So no, I do think fasting's great, and I love using bone broth. There's times where I will like not feed my dogs in the morning, like on a Sunday, and then just feed them for dinner, and they'll just go one morning without food. That sometimes happens when I forget to thaw food out, but I'm not against it, and I do like giving the body rest. Like I think sometimes that's the best thing you can do, is to really just let the system reset itself and to allow the body to just kind of shed out what it needs to and just kind of start from zero. And so I do think that that's really good. And bone broth is amazing to do that. It's like you're still giving them something, but the nutrients are like the amino acids, the protein building blocks are immediately usable. They are they're already assimilated into like user-friendly versions. And so they're immediately absorbed into the body and can help heal the body so much faster than eating like meat, because the body still has to break those down in the gut. So if the gut's inflamed, you really want to try to make it easy on the gut. So feeding bone broth or even goat's milk, something that's very easy to utilize by the body, is going to be like your best bet. And I love the rabbit broth for that. Like we're the only rabbit broth in the market, and it is a very like great protein because it does not create any additional inflammation. And it's just really great amino acids that are friendly on the body.
And then I was very excited to see your mushroom broth. So what made you make a mushroom broth?
I mean, I am like all about, you know, way more about mushrooms than me, but I was all
What you
excited
do know,
because
you loved.
yes, but I just find that there's so much healing power in a mushroom. Oh my gosh. And not just any, you have to be specific on where you get them and how they're grown and all these things. And I'm really excited to be working with somebody. We primarily use shiitake in our mushroom broth, and then we use lion's mane and oyster. But our shiitakes are log grown in Missouri.
Awesome.
So I was really excited
Good
about
for
that.
you.
And but yeah, I primarily wanted it just for the immune benefits and really the ability to kind of adapt to the body's needs. And it works for any dog. There's dogs that have so many sensitivities you don't even know where to start. So I think, in my opinion, it's a really great reset broth that works for any dog. And when has the dog ever been allergic to or has a sensitivity to a mushroom? Like, I've never in my years encountered anybody that has had that. So to me, it's just this like no-brainer starter broth that is great for any dog that has any aversions or anything. And we were able to really build it out with some other ingredients and some other herbs. And
what are some of the other herbs that you use in your broths?
So all of our daily broths, they're not called that on the label, but that's what I refer to them as, are all made with dandelion, parsley, and thyme. I just love that combination because dandelion is like, to me, like nature's antihistamine kind of. It helps detox the liver and really acts as a gentle diuretic to flush toxins out of the body. You have thyme, which acts also as a natural diuretic, but also an antiseptic. So great for bacterial overload in the body. And then you have parsley, which is a great blood detoxer, which is so important. And so that combination of herbs, I just like love it. And I have some other broths that I want to do, and I have other ideas. And so we'll see what I come up with, but I always kind of revert back to those. And then the mushroom broth has parsley and thyme, but we also use kombu seaweed in there. So great minerals and just great source of iodine for dogs. And we did use carrots, which I'm typically kind of anti because they are still a root vegetable, but I do like just their vitamin profile. And then they're also great for taste. So with mushrooms, like some dogs really love it. Some dogs are not so into it. And so that kind of brings just a little bit more of like a sweeter taste into the mix. And then we do have garlic in there, which is a whole conversation. What? Yes, I know.
Flo, are you trying to kill dogs?
Murderer.
Murderer. I love garlic for just circulatory benefits. It's great for heart health, great for blood health. And I mean, I think it's great, and also great for flea and tick repelling. Now, our broth is not going to be potent enough to do that, but just in general, garlic I think is great. And it's all local grown. So everything comes from local farms. But yeah, that's kind of like our mushroom broth. And then we chose lion's mane because I have a couple older dogs and I just want to do everything I can to protect their mind and protect their nerves. And so I thought that was a really good addition for any dog, especially dogs are also not getting enough omega-3s like we talked about in the beginning. So I like to support the brain and the nervous system in that way also. So yeah, that's kind of the whole idea behind that one.
Well, I think we're like running out of time here, but I already learned so much, and I appreciate. And you did say something about mushrooms, and anybody being allergic to them, dogs, people, or whatever. And from all the certifications and programs and shit that I've gone through, the only thing that had come up from that is shiitake in its raw form, and it's like whatever the spores coming off of it is what causes the allergen. But of course, once you cook it or put it in a broth or whatever, that allergen is taken away. So it really is the safest thing. I mean, it's the most perfect little nutrient packed thing that Mother Nature makes for us that we all can benefit from. It as a food and as a medicine. So I am really glad that you took advantage of that. Thank you so much for teaching us today and sharing all your knowledge. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. You bet.
Thanks, Flo.
Thanks.